put down?
Yes, it does. Good. So thinking could be as part of the first one. If you're just joining us, because I'm just turning on the recorder, we are going over the 6 phases of the writing process. And yes, thinking is part of the first one. In fact, we'll just give it to you. This is typically called brainstorming, which could be thinking, which is kind of what you were saying, McCarthy. I actually like the word collecting the best, because what you're doing in the first phase is researching or reading. It's a sense that your writing doesn't come out of anywhere, like nowhere. You have to kind of collect stuff to write with. This could be collecting quotes. It could be collecting ideas. It could be just messy brainstorming. So yeah, we'll go with that. Nice work, Connor.
Would 4 be like revision?
Yes. Two more. I'm sure we can get one of them, because there's a big word associated with writing that's not up here that you typically do at the very end of the process. Starts with an E.
Edit?
Yes. And the last one, it's kind of not even really a phase of the writing process, but turning it in. So actually publishing. It's interesting where we get the word deadline. I want to do more research into this, but I always thought that this is a really interesting way to describe something. I know as an artist, when you submit something and stop working on it, it's kind of like you kill it. But whatever. Okay, a couple points about this. And it's the points that I want to make are, and let's just actually look at this in review. The first stage of any writing process is collecting and figuring out what you're going to write. As you do this, you are collecting and reading and researching quotes, things that you might put in there, and you're starting to plan or outline the structure. Maybe that's a good way of putting this. The structure of what you're going to write. What are main points that I'm going to say, this is the analysis, this is my reaction, so on and so forth. Once I have that, I just start drafting, and I'm assuming that my drafting is going to be shitty, doesn't need to be great, because I'm planning on giving myself time to go back over and revise what I'm doing. And this is kind of big picture changes to what, so I might actually change the structure, or I might go back to researching and find some of the things to put in there, develop my ideas more, make it more substantive or more focused. Maybe I went off on a side tangent that I'm going to delete in the final. And then editing after that is the small details. So I'm making sure that the punctuation is correct, that there's no run-on sentences. I might change some of my sentence variety. I've noticed that use small sentences. Short sentences can be really powerful, especially when they're in the mix of a lot of longer sentences. And then finally, I'm going to submit it. Does this seem like a good representation of how we write when we're writing really well?
Sorry, Mr. Waters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, like, if I need checking about the references part, where it should be.
So like when you are doing your references?
Yeah.
That would be, you could do that in different stages. And that's a good question for me to make my point. You should, this writing process can change. for different writers and different situations. You want to keep track of references as you go, especially in stage 1. So when you are doing your research or taking your notes, if you have a chance of using those notes later, you want to make sure identify whose ideas are yours and whose are other people's. That sentence isn't very good. It's a draft. Identify whose ideas are, like when it's your idea, or really just attribute. So that's a better way to say attribute or cite others' work. Good. Does anybody feel like this process does not work for them, or this order seems out of order? Really? Really? Okay. Interestingly, some people feel like they need to start drafting before they can get anything done. Some people like to plan an outline actually after they draft, where they can kind of actually just get a bunch down. So they just get a lot of ideas down and then look over that ideas, and then from all of those ideas can then form a plan and an outline. Sometimes it's hard to plan before you get work down. Secondly, if usually brainstorming, thinking, collecting, reading actually happens throughout the process. So while this is number 1, it might fit actually in between 3 and 4. And sometimes because of 4, you know, so on and so forth. The other question I wanted to make sure, why do we save editing for the last bit? Why is editing up, down here and not up here?
Because I feel like you have to kind of go through all the steps before you'll have content to actually edit. And I feel like,
yes.
yeah.
That's a big part of it. There's another big reason too. What risk do you run if you edit earlier on in the process?
That you make more mistakes like later.
Yeah, possibly. Have you ever had the experience where you take a long time making something sound perfect and then realize later that you actually don't even need that at all, and the easiest way to get done is just delete what you did that you spent a lot of time on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did this like in my CO 150, and I didn't really care about the organization. Just after I changed lots of details, and my professor said like, your logic have lots of problem, you need to rewrite them.
Yes. So, and that's a great example, especially if you're working with peers. You might work a lot, and I've had this students tell me this. They're like, "Oh, but I worked so hard on that paragraph, making it sound perfect." And I'm like, "Well, you don't need that paragraph." So it's interesting, and you can play with this. Sometimes when I'm working my hardest on getting something to sound right, the best thing to do is ask, do I even need this at all? i.e., you only want to polish what you know you're going to keep. Okay. So if you're just joining us, we said that good writing is focused, specific, concise, substantial, i.e. it has a lot of important, significant, specific ideas that are on point to the purpose, and that it's clear and easy to read. And this reminds me of another great quote. It is, "Easy reading is damned hard writing." I think that was Mark Twain. In other words, it's very hard to write something that is focused, specific, concise, substantial, clear, and easy to read. Where you're paying attention to the purpose and audience, which is the most important part. You have good development of ideas and organization, and then you have a good sentence variety and word choice to get us there. In order to do that, there's this typical writing process that we go through to get to the finish line. Of these 6 phases, what do you think are the most time-intensive parts? Where should you spend the most time, according to writing teachers?
Is it the first two?
Good question. No. This one is one of them. Depends. These figures are going to change. But you're right that the first one is one of the two that are most important, that you end up spending the most time on.
Is editing one of them?
No, actually. Again, situational and dependent. But the other big one is this one. This is a little bit surprising potentially, but I would wonder if you're writing something that you're really serious about, like a grant application where $10,000 is on the line or something, what's going to happen is that you're going to spend a ton of time going over it and going over it again, and you're going to spend a ton of time making sure that you have a good idea and what to do to start with. It's interesting that these two phases of the writing process that writers identify as the most important are also two of the ones that, as students who are trying to meet deadlines, often don't really do, right? If I can just get it done really quickly and then edit it, I'm cool. Good writers are gonna, if I need to spend a ton of time figuring out what I'm gonna say, and then once I get a really shitty draft, I don't really care how good my draft is, and I have a decent plan to go with that, my plan is connected to my brainstorming, then I need to actually take my time to make it better. Okay, so that's kind of like a shift in how we think about writing based on, and I think the difference is in the real world, you're not writing an essay for an instructor, you're writing something that is gonna reflect your ability to advance in an organization, i.e. the boss is really gonna like what you wrote, which means you're gonna make sure it's really good before you send it, or you're writing to get someone's attention and that kind of thing, which revising and figuring out what you can cut is really important. Okay. That all being said, I want to look at some examples of the discussion and answer these questions as well. So thank you for the people that ask questions about how to do the self-assessment and how to do the revised post. Do you want us to include all parts of the discussion post in the revision or just the parts that we revised? It's basically, and so yes, I want you to include all parts of the post as if you're re-answering the post. You're kind of like, it's like take two on re-answering the post. I'm going to look at that final post as the main post to assess what's going on in your work. Do we post these revisions in reply to our original post? Is that where the self-assessment goes as well? And it doesn't really matter. I can sort your posts by student name, so you can put it wherever it makes sense to you. I even had a student just revise their original post. That's totally fine. I can see that they had the original post and then they said revised post. So I could see both of the posts in their first post. That's fine. In your self-assessment, what score do you want us to self-assess? The whole 25 points or just the initial 15-point reflection, 15-point post, I think that should say. And this 25 points is kind of a reflection of your effort and engagement and quality of your work over the entire cycle. So I do want you to self-assess that whole section. And I am okay with you doing this in the way that you want me to give you feedback. So it says, you could break it down like this. You could say, I would give myself an A on this if I spent more time adding some specifics to the presentation of Edmondson's idea of real education and connected to the who are you question. I could have also done more with the goal statement, number 3. So I'm gonna say 13 out of 15 on the original post, 5 out of 6 on the peer comments, 3 out of 4 revision, 21 out of 25 B. Or you could just assess your overall work if you're fine with that. This is mid-low B work, 21 out of 25. I could have spent more time developing my original post. I didn't revise it enough. I reorganized some sentences and added paragraphs in the revision, but I didn't add more specifics or really refine my goal statement, which I probably could have done. I did take lots of notes over Edmondson that you can't see, and I used those notes to help me develop my original post well. I made sure there weren't any errors. I edited my original and final post carefully, but I didn't do as well as I could have on the summary of Edmondson or my goal statement. I just didn't think about it enough to come up with something that wasn't bullshit, but I still did pretty good and didn't take time giving my peer-specific feedback and questions. Shoot, I probably could revise this self-assessment further, but I'm not going to. I don't need any feedback. That works as well for me. The only thing that is not on this is that I did ask for you to give me a little brief description of what you revised, and they actually did do that in here. Okay. Does that make sense? And I'm hoping why I'm giving you this language today is that I'm going to try to use this language to identify where we can improve. So I really should have asked you, what phase of the writing process do you need the most practice in? If you are going to be the best writer you can be, or you're going to grow the most as a writer and a thinker this semester, what phases of this writing process do you need the most practice in, or do you need to have most deliberate practice in? Can you put that in the chat so we can see what people want and need to work on in this scheme? And do we see when you're revising, you can say, I revised my post to make it more focused on the prompt. I deleted some words that I was a little wordy in my original post. So I actually made I revised my post to make it more concise. I don't think I actually explored how Edmondson's different arguments connect, so that I actually added some quotes and I added some ideas to add more substance to my post. The other one that's on here, interesting, it's not up here, that I've seen some people already do, is that I organized my work a little bit more. I saw that I was a little all over the place in my original point, and so I separated out by first talking about Edmondson's main point and then my reaction to it. Okay. This was one of the posts that I thought was really excellent because of how much they were able to cover in such a short amount of space. They wrote, Edmondson's article, "Who Are You and What Are You Doing Here?" is a witty and honest. Anytime you have, I'm just going to take out words that you could take out. Is a witty call to action to those involved in the university system. Reevaluate the standards for and delivery of higher education. Okay to have both of those, but you might not need them both. Edmondson argues that students who are told what they are and should be numberless times are expected to attend prestigious universities so they're able to obtain well-paying jobs and, in turn, turn up monetarily successful. Here, the idea of learning for the sake of interest and knowledge is lost. He argues that to get an education, you're the student probably gonna have to fight against the course you're in, because at the same time, professors are using their teaching to further themselves in true careers or receiving tenure. He claims the students and professors have made a deal. This, Edmondson believes, is all wrong. Education, he asserts, is about finding the form as close to play. Edmondson ends his article by reassuring his readers that diving deeper into soul-nourishing inquiry will reward you in ways the conventional path cannot begin to. It's nailing it. It's really good because they got the main ideas. Text is integrated really well. It reads really well. It feels like it's already been revised and clear. And then Edmondson compels his readers through an excruciatingly, Hemingway said you can delete all words ending in ly. He compels himself through a relatable and brutally honest, I like honest there, but maybe not brutally, through a relatable and honest evaluation of the higher educational system. His use of dedicated anecdotes appeals to ethos. He has experienced the university education system, is therefore is qualified to comment on it. Both his humor and willingness to share his stories make him personable. The only thing, maybe some more personal reaction here, but it's also a good goal statement, and the discussion questions at the bottom of this post are really thoughtful and interesting, to the point that this first one actually has 3 kind of built in it. And then the second one kind of puts all the readers who see it on task to how has this changed, reframe, upset your current assessment. In terms of a really good feedback for peers, I saw that everybody was really good at giving praise, which is awesome. And that one area I would consider is doing this, is how you could look how it's well supported. And then my question to you is, if you feel like Edmondson had more than one argument, which one was stronger than another? Which one and why? So in answering this, I chose this one because the question they asked the peer directly connected to the area of constructive criticism. And both of these are exactly what that student could have done to make their post rise to that level of excellence. So that's what we're doing in this writing class, is thinking about how our comments and revision, we're going to go over revision more, can help us get to writing that is easy to read, but also specific and developed. Does that all make sense? Do you feel capable of going boldly forward in the revised post of your dreams? Awesome. Any questions? Okay. Let's see. I hope that you enjoy Anne Lamott, and I hope that you do as well as you can this week. I know everything's crazy. There is, I should probably post, I didn't mention the open office hours. Nobody has signed up. Only one of my previous students from a previous semester has signed up to talk with me. But you can sign up for a one-on-one Zoom meeting. There's a link. I can repost that link, but it is on our Canvas and the original and the syllabus and in other places. If you are doing any writing that you'd like some feedback on or anything like that, I'm around. Cool. I wish you all very well. I'm sorry I didn't have any better stories for today. Okay. I don't want to leave you, because without this Zoom meeting, I'm nothing.
Thank
But
you,
I think,
Doctor.
thank you. I'll see you later.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Alma. Thank you, Connor.
Have a good one.
See you, buddy. Appreciate you.